What's good, IB Nation? Welcome to a special edition of Irish Breakdown After Dark because we've got a commitment, and we can't let a commitment go without having a show. Okay, and we're always at the ready to have a show because apparently Grayson McKeogh is always at the ready to commit to Notre Dame, and so that is what took place not that long ago. And if you're not familiar, Grayson McKeogh, offensive tackle out of Pennsylvania in the 26th class. Right in somebody's backyard. Notre Dame did a great job of getting him to commit. He's 6'7", 265 pounds. He also happens to be a teammate of another Notre Dame target, which is Joey O'Brien, and he'll make his decision on Friday, I believe, in the evening. So we'll see how that one goes. But Notre Dame was able to edge out Penn State and Texas for this commitment of Grayson McKeogh. Again, out of Pennsylvania. He's a kid who first 2 years in high school, he was playing defensive end. He was playing tight end, moves to offensive tackle as a junior, and now he's in Notre Dame's class for the class of 26. So
became a must-get in Notre Dame's class of 2026 as well.
Yeah. No, this is a big one. Everybody's excited about it. Kind of didn't come out of nowhere, but, you know, he didn't have like a commitment date and time and all of that. And all of a sudden,
he did, actually, Vince. He did. It was next week.
Oh, okay.
It was next week. He was.
So what you're saying is Notre Dame hit it out of the park, and he's like, "Why wait?" And
that's right.
And here we are. So this is big time, fellas. Obviously, I'm Vince. That's Trevor. That's Bryan down there. We're going to talk about Grayson and what he means to this class and everything, just all of it. And we're really excited about it, Bryan.
Fired up, man. We're going to probably do a lot of these in the next week, Vince. There's going to be a lot of these types of shows the next week. Hey, it's a great one to finish off, right? Seriously, Marcus Freeman, we're an O-line, D-line driven program. So what better way to kick off the run they're about to go on than landing the only uncommitted offensive lineman they landed in this last class. And also the guy that some people thought, not me, was the least likely guy to pick Notre Dame coming out of that weekend, apparently. I got a lot of texts from people on Monday like, are you sure your intel is right on Grayson McKeogh? I'm like, I mean, God, like, how do I know it's right? I'm just telling you what the intel is. This is what my people are telling me. And then, of course, I have my read on it, my read on the situation. And like a lot of people saying they're not going to get them. And so we'll get into the backstory. It's going to be very interesting. But, man, heck of a job. Look, Joe Rudolph is a very interesting figure in Notre Dame circles. And there's some people that love him, some people that don't like him. But the one thing every single person on the planet that follows football and likes Notre Dame should be able to admit, this guy can flat out recruit. And this is just another example of that. This is now a 5-man class. It's a big pickup, guys. Anytime you can go into Penn State's backyard and beat them for a guy that they want. Now, they stopped wanting him, according to the fans, the minute he committed to Notre Dame. He wasn't that big of a recruit, like they pulled a Michigan. But this is a guy that they desperately wanted, and they should have. He's a really outstanding football player. Yeah. It's a big, big pickup for Notre Dame.
It's a massive pickup, and we're excited to do this show, and to it's funny because you sent out a group text between the three of us, and you're like, hey guys, we need to be flexible. There could be some shows we got to do over the next couple of weeks, and I checked the timestamp. 7 minutes later, Trevor was like,
Grayson, I was going to ask you if you guys knew how long it was between when I said that
7 minutes
when he went public, because I know it was quick.
Yes, it was 7 minutes. And Trevor's like, we doing a show? You're like, yup, 7 o'clock. So it was just, I found that to be very hilarious.
Yes.
So that was good stuff. So as we do with all of our commitment shows, we're going to talk backstory. We're going to talk about class impact. We're going to break down some film, and then we're going to talk about what's next. So with that in mind, Bryan, I'm going to kick it to you. And why don't you give us kind of the backstory on this entire thing and how Grayson made his way to being Irish this afternoon.
This is one of the more interesting stories of this recruiting cycle, because January 1st, when the year turned over, I don't know that any Notre Dame fans really knew who Grayson McKeogh was. I didn't know who Grayson McKeogh was. Very interesting backstory. As you mentioned, Vince, you go back and watch his sophomore film, and we may pull a little bit of that up. He was primarily defensive end and it played some tight end. This really good defensive end, like could play at the Division I level. I don't know if he's like a Notre Dame caliber defensive end, but definitely a guy that could play, at some of the lower Power 5 schools. And that's based on sophomore film, like not even like how much better would he get. But again, that's why Conway's made a 3-star player, because I don't know that he was someone that you looked at and were like, dude, that's a future top 100 player as a defensive end. He's a good football player, long, athletic, probably about 225, 230 pounds as a sophomore, 6'5", 6'6", like a lot to like. Well, then as a junior, he gains about 30 or so pounds, moves to offensive tackle. And once teams started getting his film, it blew up and he blew up. And if you look at his sort of rise over the last several months, Vince, if you go back and look at his current offer list and you're like, that's a heck of an offer list, then go back and look and see who offered after the first of the year. I think his first Power 5 offer, was West Virginia in late January. I think that's his earliest Power 5 offer. And then he blows up. Penn State offers him. Ole Miss offers him in February. Wisconsin, NC State. And then Notre Dame offers him in late March. Right after that, Tennessee offered. Ohio State offered. Alabama offered. Texas offered. Florida offered. All right after, within about a month or so of Notre Dame offering. Month and a half of Notre Dame offering. Because as more people got this kid's film, they were like, this guy's got some talent. And it's a year where it's a good tackle class. It's not a great tackle class, but he has some unique skills to get there. So Notre Dame offers Grayson McKeogh in late March 27th. They get him on campus a couple weeks later. Now, there was immediate interest between him and Notre Dame, and he visits campus. And the thing I'll give Joe Rudolph credit for is the minute he offered Grayson McKeogh, like shot up the list because they had already landed 4 other guys. And then coming out of his visit on April 16th, Joe Rudolph was like, I got to get that kid, to the point where they kind of backed off some of the other guys in the class, the Kenny Bokus and Claude Pumas and some of the other guys, Evan Goodwin and some of the other guys in the class. He kind of backed off of them and is like, set his sights on, I want that kid, which was really interesting. So they get him on campus in mid-April, and from that point on, it was going to be a Notre Dame-Penn State battle. Now, Ohio State got in, and he was like, appreciate you, but no thanks. And then Alabama got in, and he was like, appreciate you, but no thanks. The only school that offered after that he showed really any interest in was Texas. And so he visited Penn State so be not this past weekend, but the weekend before, so the weekend of June 6th, visits Penn State, goes well. All the Penn State moderators think he's going to Penn State. I still had him in my predicted class, but Penn State was in there. They were going to battle for him. And then he comes in, he does his Notre Dame visit this last week. And I felt like once the official visit happened, it would go, they were going to have a shot to land him. So, visit goes great. Talked to Sean earlier today. I'll share a little bit of tidbit about that, but it was brilliant move by the Notre Dame staff. They had all 4 committed offensive linemen on campus this past weekend with Grayson, which was huge because it was about building that connection. So I felt that Grayson liked Notre Dame more than Penn State. I felt that for a while based on the various sources that I have. But the issue is I think that some folks around him kind of preferred Penn State because they liked the idea of him being a lot closer to home. And so there was that pull to stay closer to home. And guys, playing O-line at Penn State is not like a bad thing. That's a pretty good football program that's put out their fair share of offensive linemen as well. And Trev, you and I have talked about, has a chance to be one of the better O-lines in college football next year, along with like Notre Dame and some others. And Phil Troutwine's doing a nice job there. So it's not like they're Swiss cheese when it comes to offensive line history. And so it's understandable why a kid would say it's not only is it close by, but it's a place where I can, go be a high draft pick as well. But the relationship with Joe Rudolph was really strong. And then when he got to campus this weekend, talked to a source that actually I've talked to 3 sources that have said the same thing. Everyone was shocked at how quickly he just like fit right in with the other 4 offensive linemen. Like they'd known each other for years. Like he'd been committed to them for a year. Like that's how much they clicked. And the other commits were like on him about joining. So I was told during the visit that he told them he was going to commit to Notre Dame. But he was like, yeah, but no, I need to hold off. Like I need to go home, talk with my family and that kind of thing. But like he got caught up in the emotion. And what I was told from Sean Davis gave me this little nugget tonight, and Sean couldn't be with us. That's why I'm going to share this nugget, but it came from him. He was talking to one of the O-line commits, and they're like, we knew it was kind of a battle, but when he ran out of the tunnel, it was done. It was over. Like, it was like, we're going to get him. And so he went home. There were some, conversations there were some people that were kind of saying that they thought Penn State was going to be the school, the choice. I think there were some at Notre Dame that maybe were a little hesitant towards that. My sources felt very good about it. They're like, look, we think we're going to get him. We just got to be patient, let it play out. There was the potential of, hey, we're not sure if we can wait all the way till January 1st because there's this other, July 1st, because there's this other kid that we're going to have to offer and get if you don't pick us, kind of thing. Not like threatening the kid with a spot, but just being honest about it. Like, we kind of have to have an idea of where you're leaning. And with some of the reports coming out from other media that Penn State was going to be the choice, I think Notre Dame kind of got in a we need to know mode. Now, despite that not being the intel that I got, that's kind of the intel that was out there. And I think that maybe spooked Notre Dame a little bit. And so when they had that conversation, and then I think Grayson had to say, okay, what do I really want? What do I really want to do? I know that there's a pull to stay home, but what do I want? And sat down with his family, and I was told that the family said, hey, we're going to support you no matter what you do. We think you've got great choices in front of you. Obviously, if you're a mom, you want your kid to be closer to home, but there was no family roadblocks to say, hey, look, you got to go here, or we want you to go here. They supported whatever he decided, and ultimately Notre Dame is where he wanted to go. And so he called Notre Dame yesterday, gave them the word. I wasn't sure when he was going to go public, but I do know that he committed to Notre Dame yesterday, canceled his Texas visit, and now today he's in the Notre Dame class. So it was a very interesting recruitment because there was so much like I'm sitting there thinking, like, I'm asking one of my sources, like, dude, are y'all like messing with me right now? Because like everyone and their mother's like saying that they think Penn State's going to be the choice. But, my sources are like, nah, we feel good about this. We think we're going to get them. And there was some back and forth, some different things, but nothing from my sources ever indicated that Notre Dame actually felt they weren't going to get them. They thought maybe there's some things they need to do to kind of really put them in a position where we got to know. And then as soon as they did that, boom, this is what he does. Commits like the next morning. So I love this pickup. And I honestly think this is where he wanted to be. It was just about, you're turning down a pretty darn good school in Penn State with its own good tradition, a coach and Phil Troutwine you like. They offered before Notre Dame did. There's the pull from those around you at your school and family that maybe like Penn State. Are you willing to truly say, all right, I'm going away from home and I'm going to go to Notre Dame? I'm going to kind of, and he did. And credit to him and credit to his family to say, look, you got to pick what's best for you. And then at the end of the day, it was Notre Dame. But we'll talk more about the fit in the class from a football standpoint. We'll get the class impact. But, guys, this doesn't happen if he doesn't get on campus all weekend with the 4 other commits and if they don't mesh the way they did. I mean, it was really impressive how much he was absorbed. And I've heard this from a lot of different recruits. I remember even talking to a kid that don't pick Notre Dame. Jaden Warren told me this in an interview, and he visited Notre Dame unofficially. He was supposed to have taken official, canceled it. He's going to go to somewhere else. But he was like, I was shocked at how well the Notre Dame players connect with each other, like they'd known each other for years, and how well they did with like the recruits. And so I've heard this before from others, but it's a testament also to the Notre Dame commits, the 4 Notre Dame commits: Tyler Merrill, Sullivan Garvin, Ben Nichols, and Gregory Patrick. They played a huge role this weekend. Joe Rudolph did a great job getting them there, but they really needed that assist from the commits, which for offensive line especially is vitally important. And Harry Heastan did a great job of this in the past as well. And Joe Rudolph's did a great job with that this weekend. Hey, I know what kind of young men I've already recruited in this class. And if this kid can't mesh with them, then maybe I don't want this kid. I'm saying that. That's not Joe Rudolph saying that, but that's how coaches look at it. But it's important to get him around these kids, and they just hit it off immediately. And that's what Sean and I have both from our sources heard. Like, I don't know that this one gets all the way over the finish line for Notre Dame, especially this early, if it wasn't for how well he bonded with those players and how well the family was embraced by the moms of the Notre Dame commits, who might be like some of the best recruiters that Notre Dame has in this staff. When you look at Sullivan Garvin's mom and Ben Nichols' mom and some of them, they do a great job of recruiting parents. And you always have those type of parents in a class. Like, like Jadon Blair's dad is like involved in that. You've had, Drake Bowen's dad. And I mean, there's dads that'll do things in that regard with other parents. And that's always been true. And the Garvins and Nichols and that family have certainly played a big role in that in this class as well. And they're not the only ones, but they're certainly part of it. But that's kind of the backstory. And, and as I said, I talked to some of the people around the commits. I talked to people around the program and people that I know and trust who've always given me very good information, including sometimes not good news from Notre Dame. And that's why I felt so strongly that in the end, this was going to be a Notre Dame win. And here we are on June 18th, and it's now officially a Notre Dame win. And Notre Dame now has their 5th offensive lineman in the class.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Appreciate that backstory, Brian. Kind of puts just colors it up and lets us know kind of how this whole thing went. And it is unique. I mean, that was a pretty quick timetable, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to, offering and then committing. So that's a unique situation in this day and age. So Trevor, I'm going to kick it to you now for the class impact and how this, as the 5th offensive lineman, is that where they're going to stand? How does he fit? All of these different things. So class impact, Trevor, how does Grayson McKeogh fit in this class?
Yeah, this is an absolutely massive pickup, literally and figuratively, in terms of class impact for what this means for Notre Dame's 2026 recruiting class. It almost comes at a perfect time because Bryan and I were talking about how big of a life decision choosing a school is in the Buy Sell Hold segment literally earlier today. And from that backstory, it sounds like Grayson McKeogh took all of the necessary steps to make a good decision for him and his future and his family. And I love hearing the backstory part of these. But getting down to the nuts and bolts of everything, as far as the class impact goes, first and foremost, this meets the numbers need of what Notre Dame needed for offensive linemen in this class. It also adds the natural tackle aspect of what was needed in this class. You had others: Gregory Patrick, Tyler Merrill, Ben Nichols, Sullivan Garvin. Now Grayson McKeogh is now the 5th offensive lineman in this class. I know on some recruiting sites, some of those guys are listed as offensive tackles, but Grayson McKeogh is a natural tackle. Like that is where, and you guys will see it when we get to the film breakdown here in a little bit. You will see that natural ability to play on the perimeter of the offensive line. You'll see that come to fruition. But he is now, I believe, the 17th commit in Notre Dame's class. He's
17th overall commitment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's the 10th offensive commit in this class. But he fits perfectly in here because of what the need was in the room. Joe Rudolph did a really good job of identifying what was needed specific to this class. Bryan has voiced some things earlier on shows about how, look, when you're rounding out an offensive recruiting class, specifically along the offensive line, you want to make sure there's tackles in almost every class because it's easier for guys on the outside to move to the inside and play guard. And right now, Notre Dame had 4 guys who were really more natural interior offensive line players. So the addition of Grayson McKeogh to this class is a big one, literally and figuratively, Bryan.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I would even argue the numbers need was already met before Grayson McKeogh. I would even argue, Trev, you can make a case for that 4 was really what the staff had always told us all along. That's the minimum. Like, we got to get to 4. But, and honestly, Joe Rudolph was for a while saying 4 to commits. But I think the staff had to sit down and have a deeper conversation and say, hey, listen, we need to be able to say, we need to make sure that we have a guy that can definitely play tackle in this class. You can't go a whole cycle and not have a pure tackle. Now, can Gregory Patrick play tackle? We talked about that when we broke his game down. I think, Trev, you and I did that show together. Or was that me and Sean? And said, look, he could play tackle, but is that really his best position? I think maybe Sullivan Garvin or Ben Nichols could play right tackle, but now you're moving a guy away from what his best position is. You need to recruit a guy whose best position is offensive tackle. And Grayson McKeogh's best position, I really think only position, is offensive tackle. And I think, and you guys will see this as we dive into the film, he's a pure left tackle. He has everything you want physically, attributes, and all that stuff in a left tackle at the college level. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the film breakdown. But from a class impact standpoint, Trev, you've now gotten the And that's where I liked where you focus on, like, okay, yeah, you met your numbers need, but you really needed that positional fit to round things out. And as we said in the last, what was it? Gregory Patrick one, like, look, if Notre Dame stops recruiting offensive linemen right now, this is a really good 4-man class. Forget the positional need and the fit and all that kind of stuff. Just look at the 4-man class. This is an outstanding 4-man class. But to really make it like elite, best of the best, you've got to get the positional needs, and they were missing a tackle. They not only got a tackle, they got a high-level tackle with big-time upside. I got him at 4.5-star upside grade right now, which is that of a top 75 player. I won't be shocked if as I've seen the pictures of him from different events, he looks even bigger than he did as a junior in the fall. If his film looks the way that I think it's going to look in the fall as a senior, it probably jumps up to a 5-star upside when I regrade him. But I'm going to wait to grade film, not what a guy looks like on a recruiting visit. But you could just see him. I mean, think about it. Tyler Merrill's 6'5". Ben Nichols is 6'6". Sullivan Garvin is 6'5". Gregory Patrick's about 6'5". Grayson McKeogh's noticeably taller than all of them. Like like look at him for a second, you're like, oh, that guy's definitely at least an inch or two taller than all those guys. So this is a massive player. I love the fit. And the big thing too, Trev, you talk about class impact. The fact that he fit in so well with the lineman is important. Very important.
So my favorite part of these commitment shows, I'll be honest with you, is popping in the film. And I think that's probably where we're at this moment, because I love watching these kids and their film. And we all know that these guys follow the recruiting a little closer than I do. I just like watching film. So like when it's time to when a kid commits and we get to throw the film on, that's when I get excited. And so that's kind of where we're at in the show. So we're going to pop in a little film. We're going to watch his junior film. And then maybe if you're all good, maybe we'll throw in a little sophomore film. We'll see kind of where the night takes us.
And if you guys have some questions related to this recruitment or kind of in general, go ahead and throw those in there too. We do have a super chat we'll get to, and we'll answer those at some of the end of the show too. But yeah, guys, let's hop into film. And the first thing that people are going to see, the first thing, because the first clip's kind of far away, but as you dive into this, the first thing you're going to notice, guys, is this is a kid with great size. And I can't help, guys, when I watched him, like he's playing left tackle. So watch him pulling around on this. Talk about athletic. Look at this kid pulling around. But what you're going to see is, Vince, he's 6'7". Look at that pad level for a 6'7" kid. And this is where I think him playing defensive line really helps him, because defensive linemen have to naturally play with better pad level. So I think that's one thing right there that I look at and say, hey, I think this guy has those kind of tools. But as you see film like this kid is long, guys. Yeah. Vince, you and I don't know, Trev, maybe you saw the film too. I can't help, and I try not to force comps. I really hate force comps. But I can't help but think of what Mike McGlinchey looked like as a junior. And just 6'7", 250-ish. But just, you're like, dude, that guy's got a lot of upside, a lot of potential. And you can see that with Grayson. Here he is playing defensive line here. Look at that change of direction, guys. But the length, the size, like this is a massive kid, but he's athletic. Look at him picking that pass off as a defensive lineman.
It's the athleticism that jumps off the screen to me. Yes, he's long, no question about it, but he's an athlete.
Knee bender, look at that. Just natural knee bend. Trev, you said something to me when we were talking before the show started about, a lot of 6'7" guys are a little tight hip. This kid is very loose, like very loose hips. That's why you see such great change of direction from him. So the athletic talent is enormous, guys. But I mean, that the height, the length, and it's not just height, but look how long his arms are. The other thing too, though, is it's great to be tall, but can you fill out and be the necessary size to play the position? Mike McGlinchey got up to over 310. Joe Walt got up to 320. They were guys who were certainly not big enough to play defensive line or offensive line at Notre Dame when they committed to Notre Dame, but grew into the position. And when you see Grayson on film, but then even more so when you see him in person, when you see him, in pictures and things like that, you see he's a big kid. He's got big, wide shoulders, big hands, big feet. He's got the frame to grow into that kind of size, because not every 6'7" kid can grow into be a 315-pounder and still be athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key is Grayson has that kind of frame to this type of athleticism you're seeing shouldn't necessarily go away entirely when he puts on another 40 pounds, which is, kind of where he'll be. But man, like the length, but then once you get over how big he is, the athleticism, guys, is really impressive. He's got really good speed on space, really good foot quickness. And Trev, those hips play a big role in his change of direction is outstanding.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking a lot about his length. The thing that I really like about Grayson is this is his first year playing offensive tackle, correct? Sophomore
primarily,
year, he was a tight end.
Yeah, primarily, yep.
And you go and you look at him, and he uses his length. There are some high school athletes, especially first year in their solidified position. It's his junior year of high school. They let people get into their chest a little bit. They're not able to use that length to their advantage.
Great example right here, Trev.
Yep. And very naturally, he is able to anchor, wall off defenders. But, you got to think that him playing predominantly tight end and defensive end his sophomore year loosens up his hips a little bit. His change of direction is fantastic. And he just fires off the ball, man. I mean, that first play on his highlight tape of him pulling, I mean, his get off was about as good as what the slot receivers was on that play. I mean, he is quick, man.
Yeah. Well, Vince, that's the thing too, is there's two types of quickness as an offensive lineman, and not every kid has both. There's the vertical quickness in the run game, and then there's the retreating quickness in pass pro. They're two very distinctly different types of athleticism. And the one thing we see from Grayson is that foot quickness tracks, Vince, in both areas. It tracks in the run game and pass game.
No, and he's got what I always look for when we're watching offensive line film, especially in high school, is does the kid have kind of that finishing quality, right? Is he willing to just kind of be like, look, I'm better than you and I'm going to take you down? Most of his blocks are finishing in pancake blocks. You know what I mean? He likes to finish some kids off. And sometimes that's easier said than done, just because when you're 6'7", 265, you're going to be going against a lot of guys that are smaller than you, right? And so sometimes it's hard to do that. He's doing a very, very good job of being aggressive and finishing off blocks and keeping his pad level down.
Good base here.
Yeah, I mean, look how wide he gets. Look how wide his base is.
But not overextended.
But not over, right? Exactly. He's not getting over his skis either. Like, his feet move with him, but he's got such a wide base to keep balance. Like,
he very rarely gets like plants into the ground, Vince. And what I mean by that is when you're anchoring, you have to have heavy feet, but not to the point where you're locked in, because once a guy gets to your side, you're going to lose him. Where he can anchor, but then still remain with his feet in a position where he can kind of move. Like, this kid cannot get around him. He's trying, but he can't get around him, and the feet never stop moving. Go ahead, Trev.
Well, he does such a good job. You see it in pass protection in almost every clip of this highlight video. He does such a good job of staying engaged, which is something that we talked about some of Notre Dame's tackles needed to do this past season, of doing a better job of staying engaged. Let the quarterback have the opportunity to climb up in the pocket. Because if you look, there's a lot of film that I see of high school offensive tackles that they're just so much bigger and stronger than the ends that they're going against. They can kind of just throw that, like use their momentum to kind of throw them off and then go finish with some sort of pancake block. The amount of times that I see that on high school film, but this kid is staying engaged. He's moving his feet well the entire time that he's in pass protection.
There's two things that we see on film from Grayson, and I'm going to kind of go back and go through this a little bit more as we work through this. I want to go through it again. There's two things that we see on film from Grayson that surprise me when you consider how new he is to the position. Vince, veteran offensive linemen sometimes struggle with these things. Playing with good pad level, especially when you're 6'7", and working your feet through contact. Guys, I spent the whole 2023 season complaining about Notre Dame's offensive line not moving their feet through contact, with the exception of Joe Alt.
Yeah.
And you watch this kid, and this is where him playing defensive end has really helped him, because as a defensive end, your feet can never stop moving. You're naturally working through contact because you're trying to get around a guy, and then you have to play with good pad level. And when you look at Grayson McKeogh, Vince, those two things are pretty natural to him, which A, speaks to his athleticism, but B, also speaks to his comfort at the position, where he doesn't tighten up, he doesn't stop his feet, he doesn't do those things. You see a kid that right here is a great example, comes off, drives his hips through contact, never stops working his feet, gets a leg drive, keeps a nice base but not too wide, and just drives the guy into the end zone from outside the 10. I mean, that's really impressive stuff. Now, there's a lot of footwork improvement needed. A good defensive end, if he's going against Bryce Young right now, Bryce is going to come off and just bull rush him into the quarterback at times. There's some things where he's going to have to learn to handle double moves. He's just getting by on God-given ability and good high school coaching right now. But obviously there's going to be a lot more he has to learn about the position. But his hand play is surprisingly good. And his footwork, his understanding of playing quick and always moving your feet, keeping a good base, those things, like right here, guys, this is a great – what do a lot of offensive tackles do here, Trev? They cross their feet and set his kind of come together and then go back out instead of crossing, where you then lose your leverage. And he stays on a guy that you look at this guy on Grayson. That's a big kid. I'm not sure who that is, but that's a big kid. And I think this looks like St. Joe, because I think that's Anthony Knapp or Anthony Sacca right there at linebacker, right there at the 32-yard line. I think that's Anthony Sacca. So I think this is St. Joe. I could be wrong on that, but that's a pretty good football player he's going against. And that guy's working hard to get around him, but Grayson's able to still be that hey, you're not going to push me around, even though I am a little bit on the lean side right now, because he's got that natural strength. But he's also he's sinking his hips, so he doesn't lose that core strength. He keeps a nice base, but he doesn't get heavy-footed, which is also when you can lose some of that core strength. So this kid has got a lot of tools, a lot of potential, Vince, to be a really big-time, all-around offensive lineman. I think right now, you guys tell me if you agree with this, I am confident that if he develops, he's going to be an outstanding pass blocker and a good run blocker. That's what I'm confident saying. But there's some tools in there that I'm curious to see what he looks like. This is another play. Look how fast his hands are. But there's some tools in there to where he's got the upside to be outstanding in both areas down the road. Now he's outstanding in both in high school, but I'm talking about at the next level.
Sure. I just really like his frame, and I like what he's able to do with it, because not everybody that is 6'7", 260 and has kind of a leaner frame is able to do what he's able to do as a junior, right? So
you're talking about from a power standpoint?
Yes, from a power standpoint. And he uses his length to his advantage, obviously, right? And I think a lot of that comes from being a defensive end, because you don't want to get that offensive lineman into your body. You want to keep them at bay. You want to keep them out. And so I think that has benefited him as an offensive tackle. I am actually very interested to see what his senior film looks like. He'll have a little bit more weight on his frame, be a little bit stronger. Does he lose any of this athleticism with his feet? I don't think he will, but I still want to see it, right? Now that he's focused on being an offensive lineman now for 2 straight years, right? That's what's going to be interesting when we watch his senior film in a year. You know what I mean? So that's going to be fun to watch.
Just real quick, so his high school, I mean, you look at who they play. They played Haverford, who's a really good program in Pennsylvania. They played Malvern Prep, where Peter Jones came from. They also played, I was right, that was St. Joe. They played St. Joe twice last year. Beat St. Joe the first time and then lost to St. Joe in the playoffs. And then St. Joe went on to win the state championship that year. But so that's another team that you look at, that they played them twice. So they also played Monsignor Bonner, who's it's a unique kind of school, but they were 12-2 last year. They're a good football team. They played Roman Catholic last year. They're an 11-5 football team. So he's playing good competition, guys. It's not like he's just a bigger kid kind of beating everybody up. They play a good level of competition. And now let's bring up his sophomore film, because I think the chat was pretty good, Vince. What do you say about that?
I think we can allow it.
Yeah,
we'll allow it this time.
This is him as a defensive player as a sophomore. That's them playing at Penn. I've actually been in that stadium, Vince. You remember I've always told you guys how high that press box was.
Well, this is a great example.
This is a great example. Look where they're filming this thing from. I told you I did not like that, but this is Grayson playing defensive end for those watching at home. And like I said, this is a kid that had division. You just watch him run. He runs like an athlete. You're like, this kid could play D1 football as a defensive end. And you look how much skinnier he is than he is now. So he's just a legitimate athlete, guys. Legitimate athlete. Look at that. he's just exploding through the line. You see him move around. He's now an offensive tackle commit for Notre Dame in the 2026 class. Look at that double move. And I think that's something that makes me wonder, does his experience as a defensive end help him as an offensive tackle? Because he knows how defensive ends think. He knows how they're going to try to set me up with this move to beat me with that move because of his experience playing the position. But, Vince, you talk about the athleticism, the easy athleticism. You see that on the sophomore film too. And that's what I was concerned about. When he puts on 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds, can you maintain that athleticism? Not every kid can. That was the big issue for Tosh Baker. Tosh Baker was an outstanding high school player, but the question I had at the time was, can he put on 30, 40 pounds and maintain the athleticism? And Tosh couldn't do it. Because as he got bigger, Vince, he got stiff. He couldn't move. And with Grayson, you have to learn that. But this is a different type of athleticism, guys.
Genuine question, because I truly don't know. But do you see a lot of offensive tackles also having experience playing defensive end earlier in high school? Is
not the kind of defensive end he plays?
Okay.
Most of them play defensive tackle, or if they're playing defensive end, it's in sort of like a 3-down front, where they're just kind of big, heavy guys. You don't see them playing like this kind of defensive end.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's just athletic, man. Like that's
now
exciting.
Again, is he athletic enough to play, hey, let's put him over at defensive end and let him play that position? No, he's not that kind of defensive end. But like if Indiana got him or Purdue got him or, like teams like that, then yeah, that's a good pickup as a defensive end. But he's got elite upside, borderline elite upside as a tackle. And I think once I see him as a senior, I'm going to probably change that to, it's elite. But the tools are outstanding, guys. But just look, there gets a little high there, but just does a really nice job reading that play.
Yeah, he's just fighting through traffic there. I mean,
actually, that number 77 he's going against right there, I believe, is Peter Jones. I think this is against Malvern Prep. So, and that would have been Peter Jones' senior year. So, I think that's 77. I think that guy right there, number 77, that's Peter Jones, who's a current rising sophomore at Notre Dame. So, guys, giving you an idea of who this kid's going against in high school. This is, I think, Calvert Hall, who is a very good Maryland school. So, this kid plays, I think that's who this is. I know they played them last year. I don't know about 23, but this kid's a legitimately good football player. Talk about knowing how to use his arms earlier. Was it you or Vince that said that? But look at that. Look at him lock this tackle back, guys. Just look at the length and then just boom, just rocks that guy back, sets the edge, and then to disengage.
Yep, exactly.
And get the football. Like, guys, that's an impressive defensive end play.
Right. Right. But he's learning to do that as a defensive end. And so now it's almost second nature as an offensive tackle.
Right.
Keeping that guy away from your body and driving him out and using your strength. So, yeah.
And he knows all the tricks, right? It's kind of like, I know what you're going to try to do to me because I used to do it. I was taught to do it. This is a well-coached high school football team, though. And it's the thing I noticed. A lot of these teams that they're playing, too, but like they're you can see it with Joey O'Brien. I don't know who that coach is at LaSalle. They're a well-coached football team.
He is so fast off the ball.
Yeah. Yep.
Poor kid had to change his number from 88 to 78.
Yep. They won't let you wear 88.
No, they won't.
I mean, look, but like as a redshirt freshman, let's say he's not starting. Are you telling me you may not say, hey, man, maybe we should throw that 88 on him again and get in some 12 personnel looks and let that kid go block like they did with Joe Walker in 2001 before Joby finally became the starting offensive tackle for Notre Dame.
Good old number 45 for like a game.
He played several games. And
then they tried to do it with somebody else too once he started playing tackle. I can't remember who that was, but
that didn't work. Michael Carmody, wasn't it?
It could have been. I don't remember. I just remember 45 going on an offensive lineman thinking it was silly.
It didn't work as well. Yeah, it didn't work as well. But as you can see, guys, all his sophomore film is him playing on the defensive side of the ball, not as the offensive side of the ball. So
right. All of his highlights, for sure.
A really good football player. So we'll see one more play on defense, and then we'll pull that off, and we'll get to talking about look at that quick hands. Look at the patience. Like, talk about smarts, football instincts. They're trying to run read zone at him. Look at him being patient. I know my job. I know my job. I know my job. I know my job. Now closing the football. That's a good football play, guys. Like, that's a smart football player. And that's something that Marcus Freeman has valued, and you see his assistant coaches valuing a lot, is they don't just look for talented players. Obviously, you want talented players, but there's a level of football IQ that they kind of require in the guys they really pursue.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't shock me if we ever talked to Joe Rudolph about him, if Joe Rudolph kind of talked about how seeing him on defense and the feel for the game, the football smarts is really another reason why that they put a lot of value in this kid. Because guys, I'm telling you, like they were on my sort. Hey, we like a Kenny Boku. We're really interested in Claude Mpuma. You know, there's some other tackles you like. The minute Notre Dame got on Grayson and realized he had legit interest in them, they didn't want to talk about anybody else. It was all about Grayson McKeogh. From that, I mean, it was like a 180. Like within a few days, I was like, yeah, Grayson's our guy. That's the guy we're gonna go get. And honestly, it was a risky strategy because if they'd have missed on him, you know, I don't know that there's some intriguing options. We'll talk about one of them later, but like you're not going to get another guy that was like highly ranked kind of guy. And so it was a bit of a risky strategy in my opinion, but it worked because they set their sights on a guy. And what this staff has shown right now, especially after the title game run last year, when Notre Dame sets their sights on a guy, they get a lot of them, a whole lot of them, not all of them, but a whole lot of them. And obviously Grayson McKeogh is the latest example.
All right, so that's our film breakdown of newest Notre Dame commit Grayson McKeogh out of Pennsylvania, offensive tackle / defensive end last year. But very exciting. Huge
another
pickup.
Two-way player for Notre Dame, though.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we talk about that a lot at the skill positions. It's not often that we talk about that with linemen.
It's a great point.
You know, like Rocco Spindler was like that. You remember he was a pretty good two-way player, but I mean, I don't remember Joe Walt playing defense. I don't remember Blake Fisher playing defense. Billy Schrouth did. He was pretty good, darn good two-way player. Charles Jagasol was. Remember him? Mm-hmm. But it also, I think, Vince, don't you think it speaks to a kid's attitude when he can be as good on one side of the ball as the other?
Absolutely.
Like, I think it does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because there's a buy-in that has to take place, right? Because you know a kid's going to like one over the other.
He just wants to play football.
Yeah, exactly. You want to do whatever is best for your team, and you want to get out there and make plays. And so that absolutely speaks to the character of the kid, too. So we did have a super chat that we want to bring up here.
And it kind of leads into sort of the what's next, but there's a lot of that. But if you guys do want to get some mailbag questions in about recruiting, about this weekend, or about this commitment, go ahead and throw those in, and we'll try to get to a few of those before we get out of here. But William Chesney said this one, and thank you for sharing that, William. He says, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, just logged in. You preferred Grayson over Egboko. Does this give Notre Dame hands? Well, so I'll take these one at a time. So the first one is preferred Grayson over Egboko. I did. I think a Kenny Boko is an outstanding football player. I do. I think he's a very good football player. The concern I had if a Kenny was going to be the fifth guy, like would I have turned down a Kenny Boko? Heck no. He's a heck of a football player. Very high ceiling. But my concern is I don't know that a Kenny is definitely a tackle. Like he can play tackle. Is he a left tackle? Is he a right tackle? I do think there's a difference. Is he definitely a tackle though? Or is he maybe like a Trey Smith type that just eventually just kind of you feel best about moving him inside. So that's kind of why I preferred Grayson over Egboko. I don't want to make it seem like he's a higher ranked, or I think his upside's every bit as high, if not higher. But it was more so about the fit, the need, than just like I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, I had him ranked here and Kenny ranked way down here. They would have both been home run gets to finish this class off. The reason that I think this was the preferred pick for me is because it's about putting a 5-man class together. It's not so much about getting the best 5 players. You got to make sure they can play together. If you land numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 centers in college football and only 2 of them can maybe play another position, then you can have these great players. But, how are you going to play them all together? It's like the Texas A&M D-line class from a few years ago. And it's the greatest D-line class ever. I'm like, you sign 7 guys that can play 3 positions. Like you can't use all those guys at once. I'd rather have 4 great D linemen and 3 great linebackers, or 2 great linebackers and a great corner. And so I think that was a big part of that. But so yeah, I did prefer that. Does this give Notre Dame hands down the best O-line class in the 26 class? It does for now because they're one of the few teams that has a complete O-line class. Are there some other O-line classes that could be as good as them? Sure, there could. But when you talk about, the class impact part of it, which I forgot to bring up earlier, Trev did his part, but I didn't do my part, is looking at the 5 specifically. you talk about class impact. This is a high level O-line class, guys. It's not just, we talked about getting 5 and all that stuff. But I've got Tyler Merrill as a top 100 player. I've got Ben Nichols as a top 150 player. I've got Gregory Patrick as a top 250 player. I have Grayson as a top 250 player right now, but the upside is a lot higher, and I'm confident he's going to go way up once I regrade senior film, because I need to see some things about, filling out the frame, maintaining the athleticism and things like that. It needs to kind of be there, but they all have. And then Sullivan Garvin was a 3.5-star guy for me with 4.5-star upside. I just was a little concerned about some of the agility, lack of great agility I saw from Sullivan. But then when I saw him at Irish Invasion and I saw him going through drills, like, okay, that's the foot quickness I wasn't sure on film based on how he played. That made me say, okay, I'm going to bump him up to a 4-star top 250 guy as well. And the upside is really, really strong with this group, guys. And with Tyler Merrill, you're getting one of the best offensive linemen in the country. With Ben Nichols, you're getting one of the best guards in the country. And then with Greg Patrick, you're getting one of the better sort of combo players, because Gregory Patrick could play center guard or tackle. I mean, he's really flexible. I like him more inside. But if they got like stuck in a situation where this class had to play together, and you wanted to give me Gregory Patrick at right tackle and this kid at left tackle with Tyler Merrill and Ben Nichols at guard and Sullivan Garvin at center, all right, let's roll. Or maybe you want to move Sullivan out to right guard and bump Nichols out to right tackle and move Patrick at center. Let's roll. Like, I think this group can now play together. And that's it. That's just as important to me as getting 5 really good players. Okay, but can they play together? And that's kind of the question. And do they still take Tom if he wants in? William, I'm going to answer that as we now dive into sort of the actual what's next. Yeah. That'll be something that we talk about that's a little bit a little bit interesting as far as the what's next. But we're going first, Vince. I believe you wanted us to kick off the what's next in regard to just sort of a little bit.
So right? Yeah. So the what's next, we usually talk about, positionally, maybe, that kind of a deal. But I kind of want to talk overall as well, because obviously this was a big recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. We all know this, right? There's all kinds of intel over at boards.irishbreakdown.com that you can check out. The link is at the bottom there, just FYI. But you can get a lot of that backstory and kind of how the weekend went. But this is really that first domino, Brian, to fall from that weekend, right? We're hearing a lot of buzz about things that happened over the weekend. This is the first one. This is the first domino to fall. This is the first guy to move his commitment date up, right? It was supposed to be July 1st, and all of a sudden it's June 18th, right? I feel like this is a trend, but, what's next as far as, this being the first domino from the weekend?
Well, it's big, Vince, but you know what? Something just came on the screen that I have to now pull up as part of our evaluation of this kid. This is ridiculous.
I think I know what video you're about to pull up.
Brian Smith just put this up on Twitter, guys. Yep. This is Grayson McKeogh, Notre Dame's offensive tackle commitment. Bro just did a backflip.
Average athleticism right there.
Tyler Merrill, if you're watching, do not try that at home. My man. You're a dude, but don't try that at home. But no, Vince, you're absolutely correct. I'm sorry. That just, me, Vince. I'm like a 9-year-old attention span. Exactly right. We talked about how important last week was. And it was a situation where you're bringing in 9 guys. You actually, I think, had more committed kids on campus and you had uncommitted kids on campus. It wasn't a huge weekend, like size-wise. It was 9 uncommitted players, but it was huge from you've got to, this class can't be what you want it to be if you don't hit a home run this weekend. And they absolutely did. And like you said, this is the first domino of that, Vince. And so when you talk about what's next, it's about, okay, close on the rest of these guys. His teammate, Joey O'Brien, announces his decision on Friday. He'll be picking between Notre Dame, Penn State, Oregon, and Clemson. You talk about Kari Adams is going to make a decision here very soon. He's going to pick between Notre Dame, Penn State, Oregon, and South Carolina and Michigan. You've got Caden Finley visits Texas this weekend. Right now, love where Notre Dame is at, but you've got to hold on to that one. You talk about some other guy, Nick Reddish. Notre Dame's in a great position, but you've got to hold off Virginia Tech, where his brother plays. You've got to make sure you can hold that off. You talk about some other guys on campus. And I would actually technically, this is the second big domino to fall, Vince, now that I think about it. But first big commitment, because I think Thomas Davis Jr. announcing he was shutting his recruitment down and not going to look at Georgia anymore, that was the first one. But as far as the commits, like the uncommitted players, this is that first one. You talk about Devin Fitzgerald, who's going to announce, I think July 5th is currently his scheduled decision. I don't know that that's changed yet. It may change. He may change that and move it up. There's potential that he could do that. So I'm just trying to think. So Braden Robinson commits on July 20th. We'll kind of see where they are with that. Trying to think of some other guys. You had the offensive lineman. Oh, and then the two tight ends. Preston Frizzell announced tonight that he's going to be making his decision on the 23rd, which I believe is Monday. He's picking between Miami, Iowa, and Notre Dame. I have never seen a tight end put out. My final three is basically the three schools that everybody debates who's tight end you. So I was like, well, this is going to be good. Like it. But he's another one. Evan Jacobson was on campus. So I think I've got everybody, right? You have the three receivers. You had the tight ends. You have the one offensive lineman. You had 3 DBs. So we talked about them all. Now it's about finish. Because the momentum is great now. All these Notre Dame fans on Twitter talking trash and running and just kind of taking shots at Penn State, and I'm all for that. But it's like, guys, you're going against Penn State for 3, and only one of them has made his decision so far. So, like, let's see how the rest of them go, because you need to go at least 2 out of 3 with that group. And if you go 3 out of 3, that's a home run. But if you were to talk to people, this is kind of what I've been told. What was being reported was that McKeogh was the least likely of those 3 to pick Notre Dame, is what a lot of people are reporting. I don't know that I necessarily agreed with that, but he definitely wasn't number 1 for me. He was probably number 2. So it's very interesting that this is the one that you got first. But now it's about, Vince, you've got to close, because if you only go 5 of 9, it's a pretty good class, but it's not that elite sure. Gap closed kind of class. If you get 6 out of 9, that's even better. 7 out of 9 is tremendous. You have a chance to go 8 out of 9, if not 9 out of 9. But I think 8 out of 9 is right now the realistic finish for Notre Dame. You do that, it's like, okay, I'm not sure that I'd trade this class for anybody. And that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much for Notre Dame. It's not so much, this group may have some better players, but it's like the needs. The needs that Notre Dame has in this class on top of the high-level talent. And this is just another one that's along those lines. And I as I told you guys, I think this is going to be a very, very busy couple weeks for Notre Dame. Very busy week.
Yeah. So, again, everybody, you need to hit that notification bell if you want to stay up to date when there's going to be shows about potential commitments and things of that nature. But also, Brian, I know there's been some questions in the chat about specifically offensive line recruiting. Do you think Notre Dame's done, or do you think that they could add another one, add a 6th man to this class?
This is the one question that I honestly, guys, I'm just being straight with you, I don't have a definitive answer for.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get some feedback for. But here's the scenario, Vince, to kind of talk to your question. What we have been told and what the commits have been told is that 5 is that's where we're going.
Right.
Well, then Notre Dame offers Charlie Tom, who even the Penn State mods will tell you, he told the Penn State coaches, if Notre Dame offers, I'm going to Notre Dame. He's from Avon, I think it's Avon Farms in Connecticut. He's a prep school kid. He's actually was a 24 commit or 25. He would normally be a 25 player, but he went to prep school.
That gap year prep school thing.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's Avon Old Farms is where he's at. Trev, is that accurate? Okay, in Connecticut. So I watched his film the other day, and he's a tight end. And he actually, like, when I say tight end, I don't just mean he's a big kid that just goes and blocks. Like, you'll watch him running seam routes, and he's listed at 6'6", 270, but he's legitimately running seam routes and corner routes and catching screen passes and as a tight end, and then obviously blocking. So do they go to 6? That's what I don't know. Now, I'm hearing some things from some sources that are not connected to Notre Dame that are telling me, yes, they're going to go to 6, and then others that are telling me they're not going to go to 6. I don't know what they're going to do. If the 5, to me, if I'm Notre Dame, number one, do you have the room to take 6?
Right.
But then number 2, I would have a one-on-one conversation. If I'm Joe Rudolph, I would have a one-on-one conversation with each of my 5 commits and explain to them the situation. Hey, look, this kid's going to come in. We like him. He's a tackle. Maybe could do some things as a big tight end. Kid, mom went here. He's a high upside kid, but he's maybe a down the road project kind of guy. He's another tackle. And what do you guys think? Are you guys good getting to know this kid and maybe bringing him into the class? And as long as everybody's on board, I'd add him because there's some tools there. There's definitely some tools to work with Charlie Tom. But I'd need to make sure that the other 5 are okay with it because you told them 5 was the most you were going to go to. And so I'm a believer of being a man of your word unless told otherwise. And so if the 5 commits are okay with it, I'd bring him in.
Okay.
But I can't tell you definitively that I know what Notre Dame is going to do.
Right.
I can't tell you that. I'd be lying to you if I told you that. So I don't know. I haven't been told by any of my sources definitively what they're going to do. I hope to have an answer by the end of the night. And if I get it, you know where it's going to go. Right there. boards.irishbreakdown.com.
Got to be a member.
But if it was up to me, as long as I got the okay from the other 5 commits, I'd bring him in. Because Trev, I saw your face when I started talking about playing tight end. You've seen him. He's got some tools to work with. He's what I would define as I don't think Grayson McKeogh's a project. I think he's a really good football player that needs to fill out.
Yep.
That doesn't make you a project. I think Charlie Tom is a bit of a project, but that's the kind of project you take because there's some stuff to work with there, guys. You just have to consider that he's a little bit older, at least eligibility-wise, in high school than some of the other players, but there's some stuff to work with. I mean, you watch a 6'6", 270-pound kid run and get open on a seam route, you're like, and catch the ball. You're like, okay. That's interesting. I liked his film a lot more than I thought I was going to.
A good hands catch, too. It wasn't like, it
wasn't like.
It didn't get into his chest.
It was.
Yeah. It was a football play for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, fellas, I know we have a couple of super chats.
Let me ask you guys, what are your thoughts on bringing in 6 offensive linemen? Because the concern is, are you bringing in too many kids in one class? That would be a little bit of my concern.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if he's got positional flexibility, I think that adds to the value of this kid. If you want to bring him in as a potential, big tight end, that kind of a deal, then okay. It's a numbers game. Like, I would have to actually look at the roster and look, that's what the GM does, right? And that they know their numbers backwards and forwards. If you've got the room, bring them in. Pretty much everybody's on scholarship anyway at this point.
And doesn't he strikes me as the kind of kid that's going to be totally bought in for the long haul.
Right. You said he's a legacy. His mom went there.
Told other schools, if Notre Dame offers me, I'm going.
So he'd be 100% bought in. He's going to do whatever they ask him to do, even if he is a quote unquote project. But he's older as well, so he's going to be more physically mature.
And by the way, that's also what Matty Augustine did last year. He also reclassified back.
Yeah.
My guy, Nick Baker, who lives up in lives up in the Northeast. He's very familiar with like those high schools and all that. He said all those Northeast private schools ask kids to reclassify. And Nick's very tuned into that kind of thing. He's always giving me like some insights into different, the schools and the areas the kids are from. So appreciate that, Nick. But yeah, Trev, what do you think?
I do think Notre Dame is in an interesting spot right now because thinking about this big picture and the makeup of the roster, all 5 of their potential starting offensive linemen this year are not out of eligibility this fall.
Right.
You combine that with between this year and last year's recruiting class, if they do add Tom to the class, they will have brought in 10 offensive linemen in the last 2 seasons, which I think puts them in an interesting spot.
I always forget about the Cam Herron.
Yeah.
I always forget about him because they added him so late. But the 10, it's good. It's true.
And I think that puts you in an interesting spot because it's look, I don't know anything. I don't want to put anything out there, but it's like, what are you forecasting coming down the road type deal? If you want to bring in 10 offensive linemen in 2 years with all 5 of your guys having eligibility.
What do you think about the 27 O-line class?
Yeah, exactly. So but if he's a fit to all the points that Bryan laid out, then I'm all for it. as long as there's good communication amongst the current group that is committed.
All right, I think we've got a couple of questions in there. We've also got a couple of super chats, so we want to make sure we get to those before we get on out of here. So, Jordan Wright, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. Another one from Jordan says, from Central PA, can't wait for the next few days.
Oh, bro, if you're in Notre Dame and Central PA, the next couple weeks, I have a feeling, you know that Vince McMahon meme where he's like doing the Conor McGregor walk? Like, that's going to be my man Jordan the next couple weeks walking around Penn State fans.
Like, wear your Notre Dame gear to work. You know, you just want to
peacock in like a you-know-what with nothing but blue, gold, and green on, 100%.
Just remind everybody about the Orange Bowl and just, I mean, you just have a good time with it.
I lived in Eastern PA for a year and a half, and I loved my time there. Like, I met a lot of good people and a lot of really nice people. I lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania, really nice folks. But when you get to talking college football, the nice people thing out the window, and they start being Penn State fans. And it's like, how you're like a lawyer. You were like this smart guy. I was very impressed by you. And then I bring up college football and you turn into a raving lunatic with no rationality or ability to think past your nose. It is the wildest thing, man. That's a weird fan base. And they hate Notre Dame because, you know why? Because we can be independent and you can't. Correct. Which is why you went and joined the Big Ten, because you could no longer survive on your own. Right. Those days of beating up Syracuse and East Carolina were no longer working for you. And so you're still bitter about that. And, man, they really hate Notre Dame, which just makes this all the more sweet. I took a lot of abuse because, guys, this is back in like 02, 03. Notre Dame was not good back then, and Penn State was. I took a lot of abuse from Penn State fans.
Not anymore.
And not anymore. Well, yeah, they still do it, but now it's just laughable because you're like, exactly. I had a Penn State guy recently say, well, your team hasn't even won Notre Dame's hadn't won a title since 1988. And I want to be like, you're not the fan base to be able to call Notre Dame out on that because you haven't won a title since 86. So you might want to shut your pie hole. And it's just, they're a delusional fan base. My favorite one now is, well, you didn't even beat Ohio State, so it doesn't matter that you beat us. What?
Yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever. No sense. This is also the same team that's in a conference where they officially submitted that they have no rival. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about their standing in
Notre
the Big
Dame
Ten?
And Independent has like 3 rivals. Right. They have rivals that want to play them that Notre Dame won't play.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Against Big Ten. Notre Dame has 4 Big Ten rivals. 4. USC, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue in no specific order. Well, let's go my preferred specific order. USC, Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue. That's my order. How many rivals does Penn State have in the Big Ten?
Self-admittedly, zero. Like,
and the only one you can argue is a rival is a former ACC school in Maryland.
Oh, that's hilarious. This just makes me laugh. Like, they asked Penn State, hey, which rival do you want to have protected? You know, moving forward. Like, yeah, we got nothing. Right. Here's a blank sheet of paper. Like, we got nothing. Right. I don't know.
Right.
So,
it's hilarious. We got nothing. We don't have any rivals.
We got nothing.
Can we count East Carolina? We played them a lot in the 80s. Does that not count? Shoot. Okay, well, let's think about it. You know, it's ridiculous.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff. I like throwing shade at Penn State.
Me too.
They deserve it.
Me too. Guns N' Roses. What is a good comp? Sorry to be that guy. And you kind of mentioned a comp, but I'll let you kind of go after that.
Yeah, I mean, you could go Joe Alt, but I think Mike McGlinchey makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Mike McGlinchey makes more sense frame and style of play-wise. I think Joe Alt makes more sense athletically. I think, like, Joe was a more lateral athlete than McGlinchey was. Like, that's how I think. So, but on the other side, I think frame-wise, style of play-wise, I think he fits more of the Mike McGlinchey type. So a little bit of a combo of those two players.
Love it.
From Tommy, does Carey have a commitment date? One of the guys that was
Corey Adams. No,
yeah,
I don't believe that he does. I think he'll make a decision soon. So like, this is why I say, like, pump the brakes a little bit on the trash talking, because I don't believe Kari and Joey have made final decisions. And that's what I hate about the crystal balls. It's such garbage. These kids have not made final decisions, and yet you all are trying to jump the gun and get the crystal balls out there, which drives me nuts. But let these kids make a decision. You want to say, hey, look, it's, Notre Dame's doing well. They're training. That's fine. I do that. But that's what I hate, the crystal balls. Like, let these kids have their moment.
Right.
This isn't about you. This is about them. But no, I don't believe he has a decision definitively made. I don't believe. And he's talked about moving that around. The one that there was one I thought some people talked about like late June, but I don't know that it's definite.
Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. Is this what Lou Holtz did? Dominate Pennsylvania, recruiting the state?
Well, it's a little different because Notre Dame cleaned up in Pennsylvania when Lou was there. They did a great job. I mean, you look at Rocket Ismail, Ricky Waters, Ron Paulus, but Pennsylvania was a way bigger state back then. So there just was more players. So Notre Dame could do well and Penn State could both do well. So it's a little bit different back then. Notre Dame could get 5 studs out of PA, and Pennsylvania and Penn State could get 5 studs out of PA. And Vince, you always know the way I like to point this out. I always like to use presidential elections, right? So you look at like the 1988 presidential election, and the electoral votes in the state of Pennsylvania was 25. There were 25 electoral votes in the state of Pennsylvania. You go back and look at this last presidential election in 2024. And the state of Pennsylvania had 19 electoral votes. In a 30-ish year span, losing 6 electoral votes is a massive population shift. Massive population shift. So now if you dominate the state, there's not as many guys to go around as there was back then. So I think it's a little different. But yes, Lou, you did a great – I mean, just the 3 guys I named, but there was more. But – just the 3 I named with Rocket Ismail, Ricky Waters, and Ron Paulus just in Lou's tenure, that's a pretty good group of players, man.
Yeah.
Pretty good group of players.
Yeah, it's decent.
Yeah. Yeah. It ain't bad. I'm actually trying to find I got some rosters saved on here from like past rosters, Notre Dame past rosters, and I'm trying to find there's some from like 1993 I need to find, or 1991. I want to try to find that because I think that I could pull that up and you could look at some of the past Pennsylvania guys. But I'll try to find that as we're talking about other things. But actually, here we go. Notre Dame past rosters. Let's go pull this one up. See here. That's 1991. So let's go here. So 1991 from Pennsylvania, you had Paul Fela was from Pennsylvania. Justin Goheen was from Pennsylvania. Jake Kelchner, remember him? He played quarterback at West Virginia on some of their great teams. He actually originally signed with Notre Dame. Jake Kelchner you got from Pennsylvania. You had Anthony Peterson was a starting linebacker from Notre Dame. Tim Ruddy was from Pennsylvania. He's pretty good. You had Mark Zadoveski was from Pennsylvania. Ray Zellers was from Pittsburgh. So, yeah, Notre Dame did pretty well in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is the year after Rocket and Ricky Waters were gone. So, yeah, they did pretty good, Pennsylvania. But you get what I'm saying? Like, they could clean up and Penn State could also clean up. It's just a little harder for Penn State to clean up the way they did in the past if Notre Dame's going in there getting 2 of the 3 best linemen and hopefully one of the best corners and that kind of thing. It's just a little bit harder for them to get the volume they have in the past.
Guns and Roses, do you think Finley is a later decision closer to signing day?
No, I think once he gets done with all his visits, he'll go into decision mode. I think Caden is a very smart kid that wants to see the process through. He's seen all the schools he likes multiple times. He's going to take the visit to Texas this weekend and then sit down with his family and make a decision. That's why I say, like, everybody's excited right now, and my intel was great, and my intel is where things are now. But as we've learned, even as recently as Alex Viejo, 2 days before he was supposed to commit, the Michigan moderators were like, hey, he's probably going to go to Notre Dame. And 2 days later, he picks Michigan. Things can change. So let's see the thing play out. But as of right now, that's where I think things are trending with Caden is he'll make his visits and then make a decision when it's all said and done. And here's I believe the last question that we have.
All right, from Guns N' Roses, would they go to 3 tight ends if Ian Premer wants to come later and they land the other 2 guys. 3's a lot.
So I know there's some people in the football office that want to take all 3 if they could get all 3. I don't know if that's ultimately going to be given the green light. But I do know there's some people that would like to take all 3. And the reason why is, look, of those 3 guys, Trev, if you're about to add to that, go explain.
When you look at the makeup of the room, this is kind of getting into class impact and what it means for Notre Dame's roster looking ahead. After this season, Kevin Bauman's gone. Eli Raridan's gone. Ty Washington is only here up until the end of the 2026 season. And so when you start talking
about – And Cooper Flanagan's coming off of a major Achilles injury, which is – you don't know how he's going to recover from that. Right.
Exactly. And that leaves a fully healthy, as of right now, Jack Larson and James Flanagan, and you don't know what Cooper Flanagan's going to look like. And so I don't hate that idea, but I know, Brian, you were getting ready to lay out the
rest. Yeah, because you said Flanagan, you'll have Flanagan, 2 Flanagans, and Larson. Mm-hmm. You have these 3 kids. That gives you 6. That's the most you want to have. But then a year later, there's no more Cooper Flanagan. And at least 2 of these guys are redshirt candidates. Like, I think Frizzell physically needs a redshirt. He's a very good pass catcher. And then Jacobson needs a physical redshirt and a technical redshirt. So I think they're both redshirts. Premer, I think, can help you right away. I think he's a good enough player to help you right away. So I think that would then create some space in between them, and even if they all 3 redshirt, that's fine, because then that's an even more space in between them and James Flanagan, who I don't think, barring injury, I don't think there's any way James Flanagan doesn't play as a freshman in some capacity. I just don't see how that's going to happen.
Staff's super high. I mean, they've got to be super high in him, just based, like I said, just based on the facial expression I saw from Marcus Freeman when he started talking about him. You know what I mean? It just feels like he's probably going to play as a freshman. You know what I mean? What capacity that is still remains to be seen. But you can tell that the staff is high on him.
Yep. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at on this one, guys. So,
okay,
it's a good time to be a Notre Dame fan. I just would say let's wait till commitments are made before you want to jump on Twitter. And I know that this is going to go on deaf ears with some people, but how about you just see all these kids commit first before you jump on and want to steal their moment and
leave them alone
and start running trash talking the fan bases of other teams, because kids can change their mind. And
right.
We've seen fan bases turn kids off before.
Don't go at kids. Like,
I don't know that they're going at kids. It's they're going at fan. They're being very public, going at fans.
A lot of just let it go. Let it happen. Just let it
play out. Then have your moment.
Just let it happen
in your mouth.
Yeah. Right. Just let it happen. But that's going to do it.
But this is why crystal balls suck, because what are they all responding to? They're not all responding to my intel.
Correct.
They're responding to the crystal ball bull crap.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, let's jump the gun and steal these kids' moments before they have a chance to have their once in a lifetime opportunity, so that we can get clicks. I despise that whole, the way that whole thing is gone. There's a way to kind of let people know how things are going without going this far to just completely take that moment away. But that's what fans are reacting to, and fans are emotional, and especially people on Twitter, and that's kind of what they want to do. So now you got Joey O'Brien going out here. Buddy of mine texted me in the middle of the show about 20 minutes ago, putting a thing out that Penn State sent him called The Future of Lockdown, and it's him and Kari Adams side by side, and he tags Kari Adams in Penn State uniforms. So it's like, let's just say that's them trying to slow people down to get off their backs to let them have their moment. Why should they have to do that, though? It's because of all the Twitter crap and all the crystal balls where everybody's trying to jump on board and take their moment away. So that you guys want to know I hate that process. That's exactly why I hate, because everything I've said about these kids, I don't even talk about these type of things much on our podcast anymore. Mm-hmm. It's behind a paywall because it's different there, because we're kind of having a conversation. It's not meant to be a clickbait thing. A premium message board by its very with no advertising by its very nature is anti-clickbait, because clicks don't do a darn thing for me if you're not a member of the site. It's about the good intel. And that's why that whole process just really makes me want to puke. Just let these kids have their moment.
Yeah.
But I know that they won't, because they care about this a whole lot more than they care about the relationships with the players. Yeah. Like, it's got so bad. Like, there's a report out there that Michigan is telling all their coaches don't talk to anybody from on 3. Yeah. Yep.
Oops.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys, let's end this on a happy note.
No, this is a happy note.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a happy note. It's just, I don't know what people just always got to bring you down. But anyway, congratulations to Grayson McKeogh on his commitment to Notre Dame, and the excitement level is high for Notre Dame. You're going to want to make sure that you hit the notification bell, obviously subscribe, all of those fun things as well, but you're going to have to hit that notification bell if you want to be a part of potentially future IB Nation After Darks, because we're going to be right there waiting with the rest of you for the decisions on some of these kids and where they want to go to school. And, if they pick Notre Dame, we're going to be doing a show on it. So make sure you guys just hit that notification bell, because you just never know when that's going to strike. All right. So we'd love to have you in there. We had a great crowd tonight. Which is always exciting, and a little IB After Dark, even though it's the summertime, so it's not actually dark out, but I still like that name. Okay, so I'm going to stick with it. But again, Grayson McKeogh, offensive tackle out of Pennsylvania, the 5th offensive lineman in Notre Dame's class, 17th commitment overall in the 26 class. Very exciting, 6'7", 265 pounds. Picked Notre Dame over Penn State and Texas. So just let that one sink in for a little while and enjoy it. So congratulations to Grayson. We're excited for the future of Grayson McKeogh at Notre Dame. So for Trevor and Bryan, I am Vince, and we will talk to you next time, which will be at 1:00 tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
For another edition of Irish Breakdown Podcast.
We thought about maybe doing this tomorrow, but I was like, let's do it tonight. Let's do it tonight.
Come on now. So hey, make sure you join us tomorrow for the big show at 1:00, and then of course IB Nation Sports Talk at 5:00 following that. So another big day in Notre Dame and at Irish Breakdown, and make sure you hang with us, because we got all kinds of good stuff coming your way. So boards.irishbreakdown.com if you want the intel, folks. That's where it's at. So we will talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you tomorrow.